is Nintendo being responsible for a communication breakdown about the Switch 2's details, especially concerning the game cards that are going to be coming out. There was some confusion early on when Nintendo revealed the game key card method of distributing games that did not fit onto those game cards. People believed that the physical copies were actually just going to be codes for the digital version of those games. Now, this channel had stated that these were just game key cards for those games that did not fit onto the game cards, but that didn't stop some people from saying that it was the YouTubers and journalists' fault for not having the quote-unquote correct information. On his video entitled "Everything About the Switch 2 Backlash Was a Lie," Tactical Templar not only believed that people were maliciously trying to misinform the public, but then said that those people who were talking about the subject did not know what they were talking about. Here's some of that.
The entire Switch 2 backlash was a lie. Everyone has been wrong about everything. They've been very passionate. You've seen the thumbnails. Angry Joe did a video raging and ranting about $90 for Mario Kart. People have been very upset, very emotional, very outraged, but all of it was a lie. The cards are not going to strictly be game key cards. They are going to have normal cards for most of their games. If third-party companies want to use key cards, they're going to be able to do so. So really, in this regard, that whole thing was a lie. Watching people lose their mind over a false narrative, watching content creators capitalize on that and spoon feed you bullshit pisses me off. And that's exactly what happened. You were spoon-fed bullshit to emotionally ramp you up. But let's also talk about the fact that no one that you've listened to on this topic knows what they're talking about.
But he wasn't the only one that was blaming journalists. Nintendo Prime, who had talked about the idea that the Switch 2 edition games, which you would upgrade to Switch 2 editions of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom and the upcoming Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, would not have the full game on the cart, where he says in a expo saying, quote, "Hey, all you journalists and YouTubers that ran the story without sending a free email to confirm about Switch 2 edition games not having the extra content on the cartridge, you got duped. I sent a single email and got confirmed. Full game on cart, including extras." He refers to this email he got in response to the email he said he sent to Nintendo the day before, saying, quote, "Dear Nathaniel, thank you for contacting my Nintendo store regarding your query. If you purchase a Nintendo Switch 2 edition of the game on physical format, you will receive one cartridge with the upgrade already in it. However, if you already had the game for Nintendo Switch 1 and only want to purchase the expansion upgrade, you would then receive a digital download code regardless of if you have it on digital or physical format. If you have any further queries, do not hesitate to contact us. Kind regards, my Nintendo Store team." Now, in response, some people were saying that it is on Nintendo to communicate better with their consumers about this information, with one person saying, quote, "Where does it state that the full game on cartridge, including extras? I see it states if you purchase it NS2E on a game on physical format, you'll receive one cartridge with the upgrade already in it. I heard a rumor that the cartridge will need internet for downloads," to where Nintendo Prime responds to that saying, "No, you do not need to download anything if you buy the Switch 2 edition physically. Only if you just upgrade your already owned copies." It states as much in this email response. Also, the box does not say internet required. Nintendo has been consistent about this. What you heard was based on a fake information tweet about a fake email from support at UK. It is interesting to note that Nintendo Prime does not source where he heard this misinformation from. Another person then states, from the visuals that we've seen, neither the upgrade pack cards nor did eShop game cards state internet is required on the front. To know if it does, we'll need to see the back. To Nintendo Prime responds to this saying, "You're buying a piece of cardboard. You insert that into your Switch. Of course not. It has a download code either on it or on the receipt. This was never in question." Now, to be fair, there are some stores and some outlets that do put the download code onto the receipt. However, in most cases, these cards actually have a scratch-off portion of the card in which you have to scratch up with a coin in order to reveal the download code. This goes even further to where one person states, why is there so much disinformation about the Switch 2? Is it a sabotage campaign against it? Literally everything, price, specs, the cartridge format, like every single thing about it has fake facts about it. And also, thanks for being transparent and fighting against this. Where they respond, I am fully on the train there, and then people are out there attempting to create false narratives to grift hard, and unfortunately the internet, including journalists, are running with it without fact checking. This took me, by the way, all of 2 minutes to send an email yesterday and get a response this morning. However, some people are putting the blame on Nintendo for the lack of communication. This person states, are we going to blame YouTubers now for Nintendo's utter lack of communication? All the misinformation going on is 100% Nintendo's fault, and I hope they suffer all the consequences for it. However, Nintendo Prime does, in fact, later on, admit that Nintendo has a severe lack of communication, saying, quote, by the way, I'll be reaching out to Nintendo's support after my videos are done today to ask if Breath of the Wild Switch 2 edition includes the DLC. This is important, and I shouldn't need to do this to find out if I find out. Nothing I have debunked or covered excuses Nintendo's bad communication. Okay, so I'll get to Nintendo Prime's doubling and tripling down on what he said about journalists and YouTubers in just a second. Let me get to that video first, because I do believe I have a lot to say about that. I listened to about 10 minutes of that, and I had to nope out because it's them virtue signaling and saying that they are the only ones with the complete facts, and that people, including Angry Joe and Moist Critical and Young Ye, were intentionally and maliciously misinforming people about the game key cards and stuff like that. First thing first, point me to where they exactly said before they knew or before they got the information that the game key cards were just for those games that didn't fit on the cards themselves. As I created my own video for this channel a few hours after that was revealed, I ended up getting that information and put it into my initial video. So in that sense, I know for a fact that once we got that information, I was able to put that out there and have the correct information. So there wasn't any malicious intent to misinform anybody, either on the price of the cartridges or the cards or whatever you want to call them here. They're cards. I don't know why Nintendo Prime mentioned carts, C-A-R-T-S, but I don't think anybody on the YouTube scene was intentionally trying to misinform. Neither was anybody about this whole Switch 2 edition thing, which, by the way, it's the first I've heard anybody say that. The first I heard anybody have that confusion, and I'll get to that in just a second. But there is that quote that I heard out of that video that said, people you are hearing from don't know what they're talking about. According to who? Because I think I'm starting to get a little bit tired of YouTubers always being blamed for providing misinformation. We get the same information anybody from IGN or Kotaku gets. The only difference is that we don't have a middleman, so we can go with whatever we want to go with. And we're trying to tell you the truth. We're trying to be as forthcoming as possible with what we have. If Nintendo is going to be so non-forthcoming, then we have to go with what we have. And we can't just wait it out. Of course, yeah, a rush is going to create problems if you rush through it. But if Nintendo is not going to be forthcoming with this information, then what do you expect them to do? They're journalists, they're pundits, they're citizen gaming journalists. People depend on them to come out with as correct information as they can get it to you. Now, if the information is then out there in a conspicuous place and they still get it wrong, then okay, maybe you can call them out, but call them out individually. Don't say, oh, well, gaming journalists as a whole or gaming YouTubers as a whole, because not everybody's doing that. And to say that and to virtue signal and say that you're the only one who has the correct information or the correct opinions is disingenuous and frankly is disheartening, and it's a lie. It's a flat out lie. You're not the only one who knows what they're talking about. That person's source for physical copies not being $10 extra is a Target ad or a Target website with the add to cart button grayed out because of Nintendo delaying the pre-order date, which by the way, they delayed it at the same date that that video came out. So are they knowing about the pre-order date being delayed when they made that video? I have questions there, and your mileage is going to have to vary on what else they said around the 10-minute mark because I can't be bothered anymore. It's just virtue signaling and gaslighting, and they should be ashamed for putting that out there. We work hard on these videos. We work hard in order to put something out there for you guys to not only be entertained, but be informed to the best of our ability. That's why I, at least, always say, as of the date of recording this video, we did not know this. That way you know that this information wasn't available at the time that we went forward with it. But I try to be as honest as possible. And I think it's a shame that people who are out there saying, oh, we misinform people. No, we do not. And yeah, you could maybe pick out individuals who are bad faith actors, but the majority of those people who are putting out videos are working damn hard to give you as much information as they have, and to give you the opinions based on what they have at that point in time. Look at the date the video came out, and then look at when Nintendo gave you that information. We only speculated that the tariffs might be something that Nintendo themselves blamed this on, the high price of the Switch 2 on. And lo and behold, when they delayed the pre-orders, they said it's because we need to reinvestigate the tariffs and how they're going to affect the price. To me, I'm thinking that that's a smokescreen. They're using it as an excuse because they're hearing, or at least I hope they're hearing, the people saying drop the price. And they're using it as a reason, hey, maybe it's not as bad as we thought. But we said that Nintendo was going to blame the tariffs, not that the tariffs was the reason for the price hike in the first place. So that's a lie as well. And I can't name a single person who was blaming the tariffs that was a well-established and reasonably thinking person for the $450 price point. They were saying, however, that Nintendo were going to blame the tariffs for it. And yes, Nintendo has blamed them. That's going on Nintendo. The second they said it, you then have to question Nintendo about it, which I don't think that's the case either. And Nintendo is not thinking about the tariffs here either, but instead is using it as a smokescreen because they're hearing the complaints. And they want to make sure they get this right. If Nintendo wants to justify this price point, just come forward and come clean. Open up the communication. Why does it take someone like Nintendo Prime to email Nintendo to get the information from them when they should have told us something about this Switch 2 edition thing right from the get-go? Now, to be fair, I haven't heard that this was a thing that people were confused about. But Nintendo Prime's doing the same thing the guy who made the video is doing, blaming the YouTubers for misinforming people. Now, are they maliciously misinforming people? Maybe not. But they're going with the information that they have. And the responsible thing to do in that case is when you make a video that has information that you may not know if you have all the information yet, just say, as of the day of making this video, we don't have all the information yet, so we'll have to go on what is speculated. That's all people have to do, and most people do that. I do that all the time, and I hope people understand that. But to double down and just say, oh, well, the information was there to begin with, if that was the case, you wouldn't have to email Nintendo about it. And you shouldn't have to email Nintendo about it. I don't know if that last tweet that he made was saying, hey, I shouldn't have to email Nintendo because they should have had that information right from the get-go in a conspicuous place. Or him blaming, oh, I shouldn't have to do this for you YouTubers who post misinformation. And the person who said that the misinformation going on is 100% Nintendo's fault is correct. The onus of all of this falls on Nintendo to give you the information right from the get-go. Why does it take someone who might have an inside line to Nintendo, which is probably why they got the email, which seems to be a form email, by the way, that doesn't exactly make it clear as to what exactly they're answering. I'm not sure if they really answered his question or not, but why does it take an email to Nintendo in order to receive that sort of information? Why couldn't they just be forthcoming? Say, okay, yes, we know it's high, but this is why it's a high price point. This is why we have to charge you this much. Because the price of this is going so overboard for us to manufacture this that we have to pass this cost along to our consumers, and we apologize for the issues or the inconvenience it causes. At the very least, make it an effort that you understand the consumer's situation. Don't try to hide this stuff in a tightly tucked away place that people have to go search in order to find this information. Why did it take so long for somebody to get the right information about the game key cards? Why did it take so much information? Why did it have to take someone to look at another game in order to figure out that, hey, there are some games that are going to cost $70 instead of $80. Why does it take an email to get this information about the Switch 2 editions? assuming anybody was really complaining about it. This was just somebody that was thinking they saw what they thought they saw. Nintendo has a communication issue, and they really gotta be more forthcoming with this, because that's the biggest thing that's causing all this problem right now. If Nintendo was more forthcoming, we wouldn't be in this situation. But good lord, can we stop blaming YouTubers for misinforming people? Because that is getting annoying. We're working hard to try to give you as much information as we have it, and to give you the opinions based on the information we have at that time. And we are only human, we're going to get things wrong. Everybody makes mistakes at some point or another, and the best we can do is to correct the record when we have the correct information. That doesn't mean we maliciously or intend to misinform anybody, and that's why we do everything we can to make sure that people are aware that that's the information we have when we make the video. That's all we can do. That's the only thing that anybody can do. Is there's no guarantee that we're ever going to get the information that might correct the record one way or the other. How long do you want us to wait before we say, okay, we have to go forward with this story? We have to move forward with a video, because YouTube algorithms change every single day and the rules change constantly. So we don't know from day to day what they're looking for. And to that point, if you want to blame someone for that, blame YouTube. And I could go on and on about this. I probably should, but at the end of the day, understand that we are working with the same information you guys are. That if you're going to criticize somebody, criticize the people that are supposed to have this information toward their consumers. Don't blame YouTubers for something that should be Nintendo's onus. Don't blame YouTubers for going forward with information that they have at that given time. And don't say that they're maliciously misinforming people, because 95% of the YouTubers who are talking to you, and you probably are fans of, are trustworthy. They're more trustworthy than people like to talk to Polygon or IGN, or take your pick on the legacy gaming media. And I know I sound annoyed, and I'm sorry that I sound annoyed, but I see this happen so many times over, and it just gets annoying that we have to keep defending ourselves against stuff like this, especially when you see some of the culture war profiteers. And you know who I'm talking about. People like Airbag or McDizzle or K-Med that are on X all the time, talk about nothing else but grums, as if that is the biggest problem in the gaming industry now, when you have people like Nintendo who won't give you correct information, or just put the information in such a tucked away place that you have to lead a search party with a search dog to find where the information is, assuming the information is there to begin with. At some point, you have to put the blame on these AAA companies and not on the YouTubers who are trying to give you the information as they have it. But that's just my thoughts. What are yours? Please leave a comment down below. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. It helps me out in the YouTube algorithm. As I said, it changes every other day, so it gets annoying to know what they're looking for. And God forbid we say something that YouTube demonetizes people for. I don't know why we have to censor ourselves, but whatever. And as always, as annoyed as I might sound, I don't wish any ill will on the people who are posting it. I don't hate them in any sort of way. Critique is always good. People criticize me, as you well know. Please stay true to your mental health. Please keep that in check. As always, I'll see you next time. To be continued.